Hi, this is Ms. Bahak. Welcome to the Look Good, Move Well podcast, where you can get fresh ideas for your training, nutrition, and lifestyle to immediately put to use. Listen in with Marcus Philly, the creator of Functional Bodybuilding, and myself.
Hi, I'm Marcus Philly. We're broadcasting from Revival Strength in San Rafael, California.
We'll be talking about avoiding burnout, keeping your passion alive for training, and fueling your body and mind so you can look good, move well now, and for years to come. Treat your brain as if it's the biggest, most beautiful muscle you've got and see what results you can get from your training when you slow down enough to take it in. There's a time and place to let your hair down, shut it off, and go. But more progress, satisfaction, and lessons that carry over to the rest of your life are all available to you every time you hit the gym doing the same workout you'd be doing anyway. Listen in today for some suggestions on how to become a thinking athlete. Okay. Being a student, getting the most out of a learning experience.
Yeah. That's what we're asking our clients to do. We're asking them to be students. And that's who we work best with, is people that want to learn, not just be told what to do. That's certainly to me how I've found most success in my training and health and fitness life is truly being a student and thinking, how do I get more out of this experience beyond just doing what I'm doing? What does it mean to be doing what I'm doing? And trying to dig deeper into the layers of what I'm learning.
Yeah, I think, there's a multitude of factors that kind of go into getting the most out of any experience. And it's like, I don't know, what have you found with your own training that you've had to kind of be aware of or be more mindful of to be like, okay, I'm going to soak as much up as I possibly can from this experience, and I have to do X, Y, and Z?
Gosh, that's such a... I don't know. I think I need to even just take a step back from that and rather than get into specifics and just really highlight this fact that, like, every time I step into the gym or I step into a training environment, I'm thinking about what my body is feeling and what's happening, with the sets and the reps and the impact and the the stimulus that it's giving to my body, right? That was actually, to be honest, that was one of the knocks that my coaches had on me for years when I competed, was that I probably was too cerebral. I was thinking too much about what was happening. I needed to just shut my brain off and just go, this was the comment, let your hair down. Like, just let your hair down and just go. Like, stop. It doesn't have to look pretty, But that was also the same thing that got me as far as I was able to get, was that, I always looked at this as like, I'm playing the long game. I'm going to be doing this for a long, long time. I want to learn from every experience within, the health and fitness journey in a way that I can take those tools and apply it to something later in life. It's not just about the here and now. It's about the here and now and what can I learn from this experience for the future.
Well, I think the being cerebral and paying attention to the details is probably what enabled you to let the hair down later. Right? Like, now would you say that you have that gear, like you're able to do things without, that overthinking that you may have when you were thinking, like, these coaches that you're referencing back in the day that said that?
Yeah,
to you?
no, I would say that I probably could have done it earlier than I let myself, push that envelope, right? Like, I needed to, like, really refine and learn, to a certain level beyond what was necessary. But yeah, definitely I attribute all those years of approaching things so mindfully, I attribute my, foundation, my great mechanics, my ability to, prepare and handle my nutrition and know what my body needs. Like, and also like the same thing with many of my clients. It's like the year in and year out approach and learning and upgrading and learning and upgrading. And I'm sure you feel this too. It's like a client that's been with you for a year, they're getting more out of the training than the person that's been with you for just a month. Like they're seeing progress faster, and they're like deepening their understanding because they've learned so much. And that's a product of how you coach. That's a product of how you've worked with them. It's like not just here's the workout, but here's the workout. Let's have a consult, talk about why we did that. Let's talk about how it felt to do that. What did you learn? And this is where, like, when we work with clients, we use a software system that allows us to communicate both ways. And there's a comments section, and I'm like, I'm writing comments. Like, I used to write paragraphs. I used to write a blog post for every workout on like how it felt and what I learned and what it's like using that tool and basically engaging in a discussion around what happened in your training is a way of being, a more mindful, thinking athlete in the process.
Yeah, I can already think of like just a couple people off the top of my head who have taken that approach. Like there's the comment section and then the results section. And I've always kind of said that like that area is like your area. Treat it like it's your training diary or your personal diary. Like anything you're thinking that you want to be able to reflect back on and see at some point, just put it in there, you know? And I have a couple people who really like take advantage of that. And it's sometimes funny to see the notes that people write to themselves, even though they know I can see it too. But it's like they're paying attention to details, like certain cues that, may have worked that day or something that didn't work, a weight that you used that, you failed at, or a weight that was great. Like expanding beyond that, and how did you feel after a certain session, what things happened around that. It's just like, I guess it's being observant in a way that you may or may not be able to use that again in the future, but it's like that practice in and of itself, I don't know, it seems to develop like a deeper connection overall to the process of what you're doing.
Heck yeah. I mean, talk about a deeper connection to the process. I'll get something from somebody that's like, I don't have time to write that stuff down. Then I'm like, okay, then train less and use those extra 5 minutes that you weren't training to write something down. That's how important it is. Like skip your last set, take a moment to lay down on your back, put a thought down on your notes, and then move on with your day. Because if you're just doing right up until the buzzer, and then you're running on to the next thing, and you're doing, and there's no time for reflection on what you did, I would argue that you're not going to be in a better place in 6 months. You're going to be in a different place, but you're going to lack the awareness, the knowledge you wouldn't have learned from that experience to a point where you can now apply that to the rest of your life positively for years and years to come. And that's, to be honest, that's like, I'm not, this is going to be a gross generalization, but you look at athletes that played high-level sports, collegiate team sports, professional sports, right? Look at them like 3 years after they've retired. Oftentimes there's just like an out-of-shape, unhealthy person who is like, oh, I used to be this incredible athlete, right? And, granted they were doing it for a profession or for a scholarship or for the love of a sport, and that was the driving force. Maybe it wasn't health and fitness. Maybe they didn't really care about that. But I find it so interesting that it's like, where was the, what did they carry with them from that experience? I mean, people that play professional sports and high-level sports will talk about those as some of the best years of their life. Not because it was competition, not only because it was competition, and not only because they had, great teammates, but because they were in great shape. Like, there's no denying that they felt awesome during their college years playing football because they were fit, and that improves their brain chemistry. So why then multiple years later has that all been lost? You know, was there not enough awareness and brought to what got them that great feeling, you know? And I don't know, just as I'm saying this, like, I could think of all the ways people that are listening might be like, well, that doesn't make sense. But I just know that, you know, to me, there's something just important in that example of, you know, I'm competing to compete and just tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. And then when the career is over, then 3 years later, like, oh, I got to stay in shape. I got to, you know, I got to get healthy. And right, like, how many clients have come to the gym and how many people have I worked with that were super successful collegiate athletes, and then 5 years later, 10 years later, they're like, I'm out of shape, overweight, and I don't actually know what to do. I have no idea. It's like, well, what were you doing for 10 years of your life when you were competing at a high level? I was competing. I wasn't thinking about what I was doing. I didn't take any notes. I didn't reflect on it. I didn't learn any lessons. I just learned how to suffer, and I was really good at, you know, I had a great competitive edge to me. And so, yeah.
I mean, it seems like it's like if you were to look at training as a skill or competing as a skill, within that, it's made up of a bunch of different micro skills. And it's like those micro skills, you know, I've heard people talk about how, okay, that whole 10,000 hour thing, right? It's like, okay, the 10,000 hours could potentially be borrowed from other micro skills that you've developed in some other area that could have a transfer, you know, like kind of what you're saying is this process of maybe just being aware of how you're feeling. Even it's like that in and of itself is something that you could apply to whatever, like another business venture you're doing, another passion you're pursuing. It's something that can come in handy that people, let's say in that other field or in this new venture, if they're not taking advantage of that, but you have that, that's a competitive advantage in a way. So I see it as like, if you do spend the time of being aware and mindful, you all of a sudden are like not just developing the skill, but it's like there's micro skills that you're developing, which at some point inevitably, you know, if you can see it, you might be able to use.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess what we're really saying is like, you know, bringing a certain level of awareness to all of the things in your life that you're like putting a lot of time and energy and commitment towards, you know, is going to allow you to own and refine the skills that you're developing in your life even more fully. And then those skills, you know, can certainly be translated across many different aspects of what you're doing. And, you know, what you learn in health and fitness can absolutely translate to your relationships and to your career and to your family and other personal pursuits that you may have, you know, in addition to just making you better at fitness for the long term, which is something that many people want, is they want to be active and fit when they're 50, 60, 70. They don't want to just have a great, you know, 30s and 20s decade.
Yeah. So what are some of the things, you know, for you that stand out as like, okay, what can we do on a day-to-day basis maybe to get the most out of a learning experience? You know, maybe that comes down to like the way you approach a training session or afterwards. I mean, we talked about the notes and being able to reflect and kind of maybe debrief on some of your training, you know, sessions and give some thoughts. But does anything else come to mind for you as like something present?
Yeah. I mean, we're in this age where training is starting to look for many people, you know, a little bit more complex than just like 10 reps times 3 of these 8 exercises or 5 exercises. You know, there's mobility work people are doing. There's strength work people are doing. There's accessory, functional bodybuilding, conditioning. And once we get into conditioning, we can start talking about all the different energy systems. It's like there's more stuff happening. And what's great about that is it keeps people super engaged. It's giving coaches and like fitness professionals just something to be excited about and to, you know, expand our creativity around. And then for the client, it also is an opportunity to learn, right? Like, well, when my workout was bench press, 5 reps times 10 sets, there wasn't a lot of thinking that could go on there. Yeah, I wanted to think, and of course, like, you pose that question to Arnold, he'd be like, oh, you got to think about the muscle, and you got to be inside the muscle, and you got to, he would definitely tell you there's a lot of thinking, which is absolutely true. But now we're talking like, okay, we're doing single arm dumbbell glute bridge, bench press, and we're supersetting that with a landmine, twist, and we're then going to do something with, kneeling kettlebell or, split squat, rack loaded kettlebell work, right? So different movements people are getting exposed to, different tempos. There's always, with good training programs, with our training programs, there's always an intent behind what we're having our athletes do. And so I think that's one area for people to start that process of learning, being a thinking, athlete, is to ask themselves, why am I doing this? What's the intent behind this? What am I trying to get out of this? And it's something that the coach can explain, but it's also something that the athlete can take a stab at themselves. I started working with a coach 7 years ago. Matter of fact, I just did the math. Somebody asked me, hey, how long have you been an OPEX athlete? I was like, 2,433 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But back to 2,433 days ago, when I got my first program from my coach, was starting to ask myself some of those questions, like, well, why does he have me doing this? Why does he have me doing this? And sometimes I was right, sometimes I was wrong, but at least I would approach the training session, okay, this is what I'm trying to get out of this, and this is what I'm going to focus on. And with that, I would take something from that session with like, okay, that's how it felt when I approached it this way. And then the next time I did it and there's something similar that showed up, I would be able to get more out of the session. I'd either be able to give more energy, or I'd be able to conserve energy in the right place, or I'd be able to say, oh yeah, I remember last time perfect example, today I did a workout with 100-pound dumbbells, 2 of them, shoulder to overhead. It's one of the hardest things for me in all of fitness that we do. And it's, I did a workout with them a week and a half ago. I did 30 reps for time, shoulder to overhead, and every time I took a break, I had to do something on the ski erg. I took a lot of lessons and notes from that moment. I was thinking about what's working, like what position do I need to get into to get these things over my head, like, and not crush myself and not drop a dumbbell on my toe, and how can I be most efficient getting it to the rack, and so the thought that I put into that, and well, again, I had the workout similar today. I had the same dumbbell, the same movement, broken up differently, 15 reps per set for 3 sets with some handstand push-ups. It just allowed me to approach that with like more thought, better execution, focus on the right muscles, to be honest. Like, I was like, okay, if I don't squeeze my glutes really hard at the top, I can't lock these out. And that I learned from failed reps, before, and from thinking about what I was like experiencing. So it's a very specific example of what you can take into your like larger training, And so for one of our clients that comes in and they're doing, it's their 50th time doing banded walks, right? And maybe they're just going through the motions, just doing banded walks because coach said to do these for warm up, versus, every time they're like focusing specifically on the glute medius and that group of muscles at the top right and the top left of their glutes that are firing, and that they're keeping their heel in the right position because they know that that's important. And it's just a different level of connection to the body that I would argue, from doing it for years and coaching people that have kind of bought in and coaching people that haven't bought in, that there is a big advantage to being to thinking your way through this stuff.
Yeah, I can think of a client of mine who went through all 4 parts of Awaken Training Series, and he's starting up a new build, and one of the things that we're doing is on one of the days, he's doing like a rowing progression, like an aerobic progression. And so, one, it's just one thing, right? It's like you're focusing on just the row. It's not a mixed modal piece where you've got like a bunch of other fun stuff going on.
Yeah.
So you just have, and then you have a pace that, and a range that you're trying to hit the whole time. So you have to really like watch the screen and pay attention. And after the first time that he did it, he messaged me like the next week. He's like, hey, could you tell me a little bit about like why we're doing this so it can just mentally suck a little less for me, like in my head? And I was like, yeah, totally. And I kind of gave him the breakdown of like, all right, well, here's why. It's like we do a lot of mixed modal work already. You have experience doing it already, but this is something that'll improve your 2K, and it also is just going to allow you to build a different gear within kind of your, conditioning system, like that internal system. And then now when you go back to the mixed modal work, it's going to be a whole different game. Like anytime you do see rowing, you're going to know how to dial into a certain pace and be able to hold that or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, like, okay, he understood that, but I don't assume that all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, I love this now and it's great. It's like he still probably hates sitting on there and doing it, but he's more likely to, and he probably understands the value of it a little more now that he sees like this bigger picture approach of how it connects to other things.
Yeah, completely. I mean, and that's something that you bringing up monostructural, cyclical, aerobic, or any type of conditioning work, whether it be power or, aerobic power work, whatever. That's where this lesson got ingrained into me so much when I was first starting out in, training for the sport of fitness, was just so many hundreds of hours spent on the rower and the airdyne, just dialing into a specific pace and just learning and focusing on my breathing and learning what it meant to breathe, and having a coach that explained to me why we were doing these things. And, were there things that were maybe more fun? Sure. But I found joy in the process of like learning something new and challenging myself in a new way. And, specifically with that example, it's like, there's so much to be gained from spending a lot of time on one thing, when it comes to learning. And so, a workout where I have to do 50 muscle ups in a row, I'm gonna learn something new about my muscle up, my technique, what gets me up and over the rings more efficiently, versus if I just have to do 5 reps and then I go and do something different, and then 5 reps and go do something different. It's like I can do 5 reps, really without much challenge. So I'm not going to put a lot of thought into it. Let's start to extend my, I'm sure you're giving your client, let's say it's 500 meter row times 12 sets. Holy smokes. Like that's going to end up taking almost 50 minutes with rests, and he's going to be there for a while. Right. So, there's going to be lots of time to think and to learn. And granted, if like that doesn't get you excited, then you and your coach and your training program should adapt to find something that does get you excited, but also gives you an opportunity to learn and to think through what you're doing.
Yeah. You touched on conserving energy, right? Like that's something that it allows you to do. Is like, okay, being able to output more energy where needed, and then being able to pull back and conserve where needed. This is one area I think of with like, let's say you have a snatch day, and you really get excited about the snatch, you love working on the snatch, but you've got like 2 hours or 90 minutes to get your training session in, and you also have a B1, B2, B3, and a C. And it's like, I remember with me early on, when the snatch would come up, it was like I would spend so much energy and time into like warming up for it, hitting just a bunch of warm-up sets, then like missing, trying it more, like almost like I didn't realize it in that moment, but all my energy was going towards that. And so by the time I got to like B3 and C, it was, or whatever it was at that time, it's like there was nothing left in the tank to give for everything else. It was like mentally and physically, all of this had been channeled into this one thing. But it's like, you're right, that's one of those areas where over time you start to develop an understanding of like, okay, at some point I need to like back off and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. And So it can show up in a lot of ways. It can just show up in how you approach parts of your training. You know, I've built a lot of awareness around the last year around what it means to warm up. We've talked about this extensively on our podcasts, and rethinking warm-ups. And I mean, that came specifically from the awareness that I brought to every session that I was implementing and practicing these principles. And then, of course, it can be how you do a specific movement. It can be how you breathe through a certain thing. And, as we were just talking too, I started to think, gosh, like, what makes me excited about coaching is when I connect with somebody who wants to learn and who sees fitness as a tool for learning, not just for their health and fitness, but for their life. And that's a thinking athlete. And I think back to my group fitness coaching days when I was like coaching group classes, and there were, the 3 to 6 people that wanted to learn. And then there were the 3 to 6 people that just were like, don't try and coach me. I just want to like shut my brain off and sweat. And I never gave up on those people. I was like, no, I'm going to teach you something, and I'm going to try and get you to think a little critically about this. And the reason why is because I am so sure that if you never turn on your brain to thinking about what you're doing in fitness, just a matter of time before you fail. It's just a matter of time before you're injured, you're not seeing success, you're plateaued, you've got gain weight, whatever. Like, it's just going to happen, and so to me, that's still, a driving force for me in coaching and in fitness and my own pursuit and those of my clients and our Awaken Training Series participants, is how to get people to think about what they're doing more, and then ultimately be, have just more tools for life, as a health and fitness pursuit for the rest of their days.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like within let's say a training program, or when you're coaching somebody, it's like there's a lot of things that on your end that are facilitating that in a disguised way or in an open way. So like, something like a half kneeling single arm dumbbell press, like you can't just hammer through that. Like, you have to think a little bit. Totally. And you have to connect with kind of what you're doing. Yeah. So that for some people that might be the introduction, versus for other people it might be a totally different area based on, whatever your current experience and ability level is.
Yeah.
How do you recommend people, take something away from this and kind of, start implementing this idea of being a thinking athlete?
Well, I think actually what you just said is maybe a perfect first approach. There's some part of training every day that I think should be dedicated towards, a movement or a series of movements or something that really forces you to slow down and do some thinking, right? That's kind of functional bodybuilding, right? A lot of the movements that we have and that we're exposing people to require some thinking. So yeah, you're going to go in back squat heavy today, and maybe you're not going to think too much about it. You're just going to grind out some of your 90% sets or whatever you're doing. And perhaps your conditioning is going to be, a 10-minute total, suck fest, and you're going to just hit the 3, 2, 1 go and just shut your brain off. Okay. Well, somewhere in the middle there, try implementing some functional bodybuilding. I think functional bodybuilding is when the tempos are prescribed correctly, when the movements are executed well, when we are, moving into some of those moderate, intermediate, moderate level skill movements that, incorporate maybe multiplane or get you doing some balance work, unilateral stuff. Like, I think that that's a great way to get you to engage mentally. Yeah. Trying some of our FBB warm-ups. Those are so great for slowing down and connecting mind to body. We talked about this as like a global philosophy on how to approach fitness, but with any big change in philosophy that you want to embark on, like, you got to start somewhere. And I think starting with basic, movements or warm-ups through functional bodybuilding in your day-to-day training will start to get you without even like just by virtue of the movements themselves, you have to think a little bit. And I think that that's a perfect way to start this journey. And that's why Awaken Training Series has done that for so many people, because it just forced them to start thinking, and then we can take it to deeper and deeper layers. When you have a coach, when somebody that's working with you one-to-one, if you join our remote coaching team or you come on site here to our gym, you're going to get a coach that's going to give you that on a next level and allow you to truly embrace, what it means to be a thinking athlete.
Yeah. I think that, like you said, it allows you to go deeper and deeper, and really it's asking the questions of couple questions, like what are the pieces that are getting me excited in this process, and then what are the pieces that aren't, and there's probably information in both of those.
Completely. Yeah, totally.
All right, well, thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, thanks for listening.